Hey guys, hi everyone, good morning. Walaikum salam, Doha. Good morning, Krish. Good morning, Mohammed. Good morning, S25. Good morning, Pradnia. Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? I think I should be already visible and audible, right? Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Sandeep. Walaikum salam, Amna. Good morning, Chalak. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Perfect. We'll wait 1 or 2 minutes for other people to join, and then accordingly, we are going to start our session. In the meantime, let's set up the environment for today's session. We have only 2 to 3 classes left with respect to backend. I mean, from me, most probably I'm going to get one another instructor related to generative AI, related to MERN only, related to the backend, which we have discussed, most probably. If not, then we will be taking these 3 sessions. These will be the last 3 sessions. And then we'll have an exam, small project which you will have to build in a given frame of time, and once you do that you will be eligible for all the benefits and all the what's this called, certification and all that stuff. Mock interviews as well. I will take mock interviews as well. Don't worry about that, because worry about it. So let me start opening our open board, and let's try to understand whatever today's agenda is. See, today we are going to discuss, as you might have seen the title of today's session, we are going to discuss something called as RBAC, role-based access control design, role-based access control system. Until now, we have discussed a lot of things related to our backend. We have discussed how basic servers work, what are the different middlewares. We have discussed authentication. We have discussed authorization. We have also built that small application as well, right? Internship application, internship portal. Now it's time to understand a very specific design that most of the times we might implement on websites, called as RBAC, which stands for role-based access. Please make sure that you take notes properly. Role-based access control systems, or control design, or whatever you want to call it. It's a back-end paradigm, back-end design which we use. Good morning, Adil. Good morning, Krish. Good morning, everyone. Now, what does it mean? I have already explained in one of the classes what role-based access control system mean. Let me still tell you what actually role-based access control system means. Let me give a very quick idea about it. We all, today is India versus Pakistan match, right? Everyone is very excited for that. We have a match today at 1:30, and it will start at 1:30 on Geo Hotstar, right? The application name is Geo Hotstar. If you don't have subscription, will you be able to watch that video? If you don't have subscription, will you be able to watch that video? Of course not. You won't be able to watch that stream, watch that match live. Maybe even if you are, you won't be able to experience the HD quality of it. Leave Geo Hotstar aside. We all listen to music, right? We use Spotify application. In Spotify application, there are two types of users. One is called standard, another one is called premium. Two types of users, listeners we have. In standard, we all agree that we are able to listen to the songs, but then after every song or after every 2 songs, we have ads. We are not able to download the song. We are able to like the song, but we are not able to download the song. Liking is allowed in standard, but downloading is not. Right? So in Spotify, if your plan, if your role of a user is standard, in that particular case, the song which we are listening to, we will be able to listen 2 to 3 songs continuously. But after 3 songs, there are 3 ads that we nowadays get. And on the same time, the songs which you can listen in the standard role. This is a role that I have. So on this particular case, what we will do, we will be able to simply make sure that we can like the song, but we cannot download the song in standard. On the other hand, if the role of a user is premium, we all can understand the subject song that we have, there will be no ads. There will be no ads. And on the same time, now like is allowed for the consumer, and also download is allowed from the for the consumer. Now, do we all agree in this particular application, which is Spotify over here, we are able to perform some of the permissions, some of the operations on the subject song, depending on what our role is. So if our role is standard, in that particular case, we can listen to songs, but we have to watch the ads. We can like the song, but we cannot download the song. So there's a permission restraint over there on the role standard. We all agree with that, right? On the other hand, if the role is premium, in that particular case, what's going to happen? We will be able to like the song, we'll be able to listen to songs without any ads, and there might be some other benefits as well. So in this particular case, can we say, please give me a quick confirmation in the chat, can we say that in this kind of design, the resources that website gives me, it depends on the what the role of a user is, the actions that user can perform, it entirely depends on the role a user can have. Can we all, do we all agree with that? Of course, yes, right? So when such kind of paradigm, when such kind of design is implemented in backend of a web application, that you can access resources based on what your role is in that particular case, such kind of designs is called a role-based access control design. RBAC designs. Now, whenever you deal with role-based access control, and I will give you an final exam, depending on which it will be decided whether you are eligible for certification and mock interviews. It will be role-based access control design project, small project, but wonderful project. In this particular case, the approach that I will teach you, same approach you have to implement there as well. Exactly same ditto. Okay. So please pay close attention, because these three sessions are going to be very important for you. Can we all say that this and this, these two are nothing but roles of a user, and it will be predefined? Like before I will start working on this application, I have a documentation, product ready document, or we call it maybe SRS, software requirement specifications. In that document, we already know what are the roles inside this web application that I might use. Yes. Then in this whole application, do we all agree this is nothing but subject? Subject means on which application, on which particular entity we are performing these actions. So this is song is nothing but a subject on which we are trying to see whether we are able to perform this action or not, whether we are able to do this or not. So this is a subject. Then this download or like, do we all agree this is nothing but permissions? What are the permissions in my application? What are the actions in my application that we are going to have? So from this, we got three things: roles, subject, and permissions. And you will always have this in most of the applications whenever role-based access control design is implemented. So let's try to write it down first. As soon as you write it, automatically your backend design will be very easy to implement. Okay. In this particular case, first of all, note down how many roles do you have. I'm going to build the same application, Spotify application, although not the Spotify application like Spotify, but they're working. Like this is how it's going to work. There will be two actions, there will be two roles. That's what I'm trying to design. So there are two roles. Number one is standard. Number two that we have over there is premium. And in order to make sure that student has a premium plan, we have to upgrade. We have to maybe pay 200 rupees. Then another thing over here is permission. So in this particular case, we can simply say permission number one is like on subject to song. Number two permission is download on my subject to song. Now at this point of time, what kind of exam is there in today? Because Ankit also said the same thing. I will say the same thing. Is it KS? KS exam is today, right? If I'm not wrong. So all the best for that. Everyone who is attempting that, I wish you best of luck. So over here, we have one role standard, another role premium. We have permission like on the subject song, download on the subject song. But right now, do you see these will be two different models? This will be one model in my database, this will be one model in my database, and it's predefined. Like I already know before I start working on it, I know around this application, this is what the role I have, this is what the permission I have. Now, you tell me quickly in the chat at this point of time, do you think there's any connection between roles and permissions? Do you think right now at this point of time, my roles and permissions, they are connected. No, they are completely different. Although I know which role will have which permission, which role will which have which permission, I know, but they are not connected right now. So in this particular case, we will create one another model called as role permission, where we will simply link the standard with the like and song. So this will be standard role mapping with the like and song. Similarly, role permission will have premium. It will be mapped to the download and song. Now, this particular thing actually will let us know based on the role what is the permission that will be assigned to a user. So these three we have. So let's create. Let's try to build at least to this much part first, and then we will talk about rest of the theory. So we are currently discussing MERN, and let me go quickly in our folder. Okay, and in this particular folder, we are currently in backend, and we are currently in MERN. And let me simply go and create a new project over here, and that project will be, let's name it RBAC. Okay, we are only going to build its what is called server. So please pay close attention. So let me go here and let me try to open this with code. Quickly tell me, whenever we build our servers, what's the first thing that we do? What's the first thing that we do? We install modules, different modules. So let me simply go here and let me try to install npm init-y. Done. So that we can have package.json. In the meantime, I will simply go here, create a file with the name of index.js. Okay. And also, we need to understand what are we trying to do. We are trying to define a role-based access control system, which means depending on a role of a user. So don't you think we need user in the first place? So we need authentication and authorization. Understood? Yes or no? So the first thing that we will need in our application is the authentication or authorization. Because if you don't authorize the user, how can you implement role-based access control system? If you remember when we talked about authorization, I told you guys that role-based access control system is also a way of authorization. So we have to implement JWT over here. So what are the modules which I will install? So let me simply go here and try to install a few of the modules. Number one I know is Express. Number two I know is bcrypt. Number three I know is Mongoose. Number four I know is JSON Web Token, right? Something like this. Number five I know Nodemon. So these are the modules which I know that I am going to install them. So instead of installing later, let me install them right now. So Express, bcrypt, Mongoose, JSON Web Token, Nodemon, and we know all what they are supposed to do. So let's wait some time. In the meantime, let me try to create my Express application. So Express is equals to, and this time, let's do one thing else. Okay. Instead of using require, if you remember, until now, all we have been doing is we have been using require statements only. Yes or no? So constant Express is equals to require Express. Constant Mongoose is equals to require Mongoose. So that's what we have been using until now. Let's not do that. In this particular case, what I will do is I will show you one another way of importing our modules or importing anything. It's not just about modules, it's about importing anything. So what I will do is I will show you a simple usage of import. Although it says there's an error. What is the error? Has it installed anything? No, it has not installed anything. What is the error? The error that we are able to see is, I think the error is related to, what is the error? Have I given any wrong command? Let me go drag down. Let's try to see the command again. So let me clear. Let me try to see the command. So npm I express bcrypt mongoose JSON Web Token. Okay, Nodemon. E is missing. Sorry. No, Nodemon is this much, right? So let me try to remove bcrypt. I think it's bcrypt is creating problems. So npm I express, and let's try to install these two on. I think this should be installed properly. I don't know what the issue was. Let's wait. Perfect. I think now it is being installed. So we can see dependencies, Express and Mongoose. Let me try to install other dependencies as well. So npm I bcrypt. Done. It should be also installed. This package is no longer supported. So why is this not getting? Is spelling correct, guys? Can you confirm that what is happening in bcrypt? So npm I, if bcrypt is not being installed, in that particular case, let me try to install bcrypt.js, okay, which is similar module. So if bcrypt is not right now, I'm not able to install it. Let me install bcrypt.js. Let's see if it works. Perfect, it worked. So we can clearly see bcrypt also got installed. So what is the method in bcrypt which we use? Hash method. We use similar methods like that. Similar methods I'm going to use here as well. So there's no difference over here. I can see that there are only what we can say 8 joined, which is very small number. That's why we will take only 2 classes. Otherwise my plan was 8 classes. Okay, now let's move forward and let's try to understand. Now in this particular case, I am going to use import express from express. In our previous examples, whenever we had worked with express or any module inside our backend, we have always done constant express is equals to require express, but you can import your modules like this as well. And people in the most time are comfortable around this only. So people are comfortable around import instead of require, because in React, if you remember, we use import statements, we use import things over there. Then so you should use import in not all cases, but sometimes. But if I try to create an express now, it will show me an error. So let's try to figure out that. So constant app over here is equals to express app like this. Wonderful. Then finally, after that, I will simply say on my app, please make it listen. Listen to what? Listen to a port called as 8000, and then comma. I will simply tell you to execute a callback function, which will simply say console.log. Console.log what? Listening to port 8000. And let me go to package.json, and over here, let me add a dev dependency. And with that dev dependency, will simply go and be of nodemon index.js. Done. So now let's try to write npm run dev to see whether it will work or not. So it says nodemon is not installed. Have I not installed nodemon? So nodemon. So npmi nodemon like this. Perfect. So now if I try to execute my server, it should properly work. Perfect, it works. Although it says that, okay, perfect. Now there's an error. If you look at this particular error now, whenever we try to import our modules with help of an import, it says there's a missing type module. Always remember, whenever you work with your backend and you write import instead of constant require, instead of using require, you have to go in your package.json and you have to implement type key over there and tell it module. This particular thing tells it to treat it as a module and make sure that import statements are properly going to be supported. I hope that makes sense. Good morning, motivational. Good morning, Nandi. Good morning, everyone. Am I clear? So whenever we talk about using what is called import, make sure in that particular case you keep in your package.json type is equals to module. That's the most important thing that you need to do. After this over here, I will simply go and import my mongoose as well. We have to import our mongoose as well. So let's try to import it quickly. So import mongoose. Or instead of importing our mongoose over here, let's do one thing else. Let us try to simply go and let's try to simply create a separate file. Until now, we have worked with few folders. We have worked with a folder called as models. We have worked with a folder called as routes. We have worked with a folder called as middlewares. Have we worked with any other folder? But in today's session, we are going to work with a better folder structure. The first folder that I will always create is models. Second folder that I will always create is a route, like this. Third folder that I will create is middlewares in my application, like this, middlewares. Done. Fifth folder that I will go here and create as controllers. And let's try to understand what all of these controls are one by one. Okay. When we say controllers, when we say middlewares, what does it mean? Let's try to understand that entire thing. So let me use a pen over there and let's try to understand all these folders one by one. So please pay attention, because sometimes you might try to download a backend folder and you will see different things and you don't know what this folder does, what that folder does, right? Whenever we work with our full stack applications, our agenda is that we will always try to keep the concerns that we are dealing with in a separate way, in an isolated way. This is called separation of concerns. What's it called? Separation of concerns. Until now, if you remember, we have one file, server file called index.js. Don't you think, guys, we can write everything in this particular file? Of course, we can write everything in particular file. On this case, let me suppose I will simply say app.get. On this app.get, let me simply say /adfer. And over here in this /adfer, I will simply go and try to call my function, which is going to be request, response. Then over here, I simply write my business logic, whatever the logic which we want to execute. Is this what our route is? Yes or no? This is what our route is. In this particular case, this we have already understood. We will put this over here in our routes folder, right? And maybe in between, if there's any middleware called as auth, we will put that in the auth middleware folder. We have seen that. But this function that we have, this function that we have, this is called a controller. What's it called? A controller. So instead of putting a function over there directly and writing every bit of logic there, what we do is we'll separate this in a separate folder where it will be a controller, and we will call this controller wherever we want. So even if we put this particular function over here separate as well. Now, you guys tell me quickly in the chat, when we talk about this business logic, can you quickly tell me what this business logic is about? What do we do in this business logic? We try to write our queries to the database. We connect to the database, get response. We connect, find data, get response. Even all of this data business logic, we can put it in a folder called as services, which we might not do in this project, but there's a folder, another folder for even writing this business logic as well, called as services. So this is what the flow of your backend in most of the cases will be. Number one, from the front end, we will write a route. So routes folder. Executing a logic. So it will be the middleware folder. From here, then we have to once middleware. What does middleware do? Can anyone tell me quickly in the chat? What does middleware do? Quickly. What does middleware do? Middleware executes a code and calls next function in the queue. So it's about next function. So the next function over here will be controller. And in the controller, we might have over there some business logic, which means some services that it's supposed to execute. Those services will communicate with the models. And from here, we'll simply get a response to the services, to the controls, to the routes. So this is usually, these are the 5 entities that are used inside our, what is called backend structure. Okay. Roshan says authorization. Now, there are different middlewares. One of the middleware is authorization. So you should not say middleware is authorization. Authorization is one type over there. Okay. I hope that makes also sense. Another very important thing. In our web application, when we try to talk about servers, there are different secrets we use. We have some information which we do not want to share with the public. You push this code to the GitHub repository. So you do not want that your data should be also made public. What kind of secrets I am talking about? Your MongoDB database cloud link, server link. Do you think it should be made public so that anyone can get it from your data, from your GitHub profile? Of course not. Your JWT secret key. Don't you think when you try to create the JWT authentication token, you pass secret key over there? Do you want that secret key to be public as well? It will be very easy to hack then, the server that you have. So these kind of things, which are secret over there, we actually put them in a file called as .env. What's it called? So we create a file with the name of .env. And in this .env, what we do is we simply make sure that all of the secrets which we have in our web application, they are put there. Secrets like, as I said, MongoDB URL, even our port as well, even some of the creations. For example, you might end up using node mailer. You might want that whenever anyone performs an action, generate a mail. You can use node mailer library for that, right? There's a library called as node mailer, with the help of which you can generate mails. You have to provide credentials to it, email to it, password to it, of an account from which you want it to generate mails and send it to the email IDs of the users, of the clients. But in that particular case, you have to provide credentials of your account. Yes or no? Although the password is different, it's not the original same password, but if you have used, you have to provide password. Do you think you want to expose your password to the public of your email? Yes or no? Do you think you want public that? Of course not. So this env file which we have in this case, it contains those secrets. Let me simply show you how to use it. So port number is, let's suppose 8000 in this case, which I want to implement. So port is number 1. Second thing that I will have over is our JWT secret. So JWT secret. This JWT secret will be used to create a secret for our authentication authorization. And let me simply make it whatever you want to make the string. Let's make it string. Then another one over there is the URI for our MongoDB. And I would definitely suggest you to go and connect this particular project with the proper MongoDB atlas on the internet. But as of now, I will simply use MongoDB colon slash slash local host colon 8000. Sorry, not 8000. What's the port number? 27017. Then slash. Let's simply name this YouTube RBAC. So this is my MongoDB URL link, right? Now, also another very important thing is now in my application, I have put all the secrets. I have put my port number. Now, I want to use that port number in my application. How will I use that port number in my application? I will simply go, instead of using 800 over here, I will simply tell it use. How do we access our variables in our env? There's a module that we have to use, and that is called a .env. Once I install that, then we'll simply say process dot, but we have to configure it as well. So process .env dot, the variable name. So you can clearly see it says listening to port 8000. And do you think, guys, I told it what the port is? No, port it used from here. So whenever you define an env, you have to read the variable. This how you read it. Process.env dot, then the variable name, whatever the entity name is, and you can clearly see it's connected to a port. Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat. Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat quickly. Done. Perfect. Moving a little bit forward. Another very important folder that we might end up using in maximum projects, it's called config or helpers. You can name it config, you can name it helpers. It's completely up to you. So let me name this helpers over there. What kind of helper am I looking at? I am looking at a helper with help of which I will be able to connect to the database. So let me simply say db connect.js. In this db connect, I will again use import. I won't use require now. So import my mongoose from mongoose, because it's installed, so it should be imported. Then from here, I will simply say, now since I have to also use process.env.mongo URL, right? So I have to now implement .env. Let's try to see whether it will be, working without .env or not. So I will simply tell it, define one thing, mongoose.connect. Okay, so mongoose.connect over there, it has to connect with the process. So process.env dot, what is the name of the variable? It's URI. So let me copy this and let me simply go and paste it in this particular db connect URI. And once it's done, if this is done, in that particular case, we would want you to execute what we would connect it to the database. So mongoose.connect in that particular case, then go there and execute like this, where you will simply say console.log connected to db. Now, if you guys tell me quickly, I have defined a helper. Does my server file, this is the server file eventually, this index.js represents your whole thing. Does it know there's a file called as dbconnect and there's some method called as mongoose.connect in this application? Does this exist? Of course not. So we have to export it. And how do we export? We export in two ways. Number one is called default export. So export default like this. Export default. And this, I'm exporting it as a module now. So in my application now, what I am going to do is I'm simply going to make sure to import it. So you have to export your things. If you do not export, then there will be a problem. So I'll simply go here and now I will simply say import. What? Import db connect from helpers db connect.js. Make sure you will write in this case .js as well. Okay. Now after this, let me simply go and talk about, it says it's not working. Why is that? Import mongoose. Let me try to go here to this particular thing. So in this case, now I will call my db connect. I have called my db connect function. Now it says there's an issue. What is the issue? URI parameter. Very good. One very important thing you need to understand. If you look at this file now, over here, I was able to read process.env.port. Did I install any .env environment? No, I did not. I simply wrote process.env.port and it properly worked. right? But once I do process dot env dot uri, over there it says I don't know what this is. So you need to understand over here in these files, you have to configure your .env. You have to tell it that process.env, I have to configure it to the env file. So for that, I will simply go and try to install .env. So there's a module which you should install npm i.env. Done. So let's try to install it. In the meantime, let me simply go import what my .env from where? From my .env, like this. Done. And then I will simply go here and we have to configure it. This is the most important thing that we need to do. If you don't configure your env environment, in that case it will just throw an error. But how do we configure it? There's a method, simple method, as the configuration itself says, dot env dot. As soon as you write dot, it gives you automatically something, and this is how you are going to configure it. Now if I go here, now it says connected to database. Am I clear? Does it make sense? So we even don't put our mongoose dot connected directly in the file. We isolate. We keep separation of concerns. This is the most important thing that we need to do in this entire application: separation of concerns. After this, what is it that we are trying to create? We are simply trying to create over there a Spotify kind of functionality, role-based access control functionality, in which I have two roles, two permissions, role permissions, user, right? So let's simply go, before I write any kind of logic, I will simply set up the data for this kind of scenario. In models, the first folder that I will create is for my roles. Done. Second folder that I will create at this point of time is the permission, like this. Third folder that I will at this point of time create over here will be role permission. And I think we have already discussed what these three folders are. Role permission. And another very important thing is, since we need a user over there, so we have to have a user as well. So let me go here and create one another model folder called as user. Does it make sense? Now, one another very important thing. You should note these points down. Please do that if you are serious about backend. Over here, I will create one model. 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 Hey guys, am I audible? Hello, hi everyone, am I audible? So I don't know, there was some issues with the platform, StreamYard platform, but I think I should be audible now. So it was not from my side, it was from the StreamYard platform. Perfect, great, okay. So let's continue, let's continue. I'm so sorry. So over here, we need to understand that what is the application that we are trying to build right now. We are trying to build a small application called as role-based access control system. That's the design which we are interested in. And as of now, I have discussed four folders: one folder, two folder, three folder, four folders. And in all those, they represent different models. Now, my simple question is, do you think my main application is going to, whenever it needs to connect to the permission, connect to the role, connect to the role permission, so we will have four exit points of the models where we have to export this model from here and then use it everywhere? No, this is not what we do. Even though if there are 10 models over here, 20 models over there, in the model folder, we create a single file called as index.js. In this file, we'll be able to export everything. So even if I have 10 controllers, 10 services, 10 models, we always try to make sure there's only one exit point from everywhere. This is one of the most important things. Okay. Now let's go here and let's try to create a file in this case. So let me simply go create a file with the name of index.js, in which I will simply import my mongoose. So import mongoose over here, or it will be better to directly use the mongoose.schema method. So mongoose.schema. So let me try to import my schema from my, sorry, it has not imported. So let me try to import it directly. So import over there, what import schema from my mongoose. Done. And then over it, from this particular file, I will simply tell it to export. Export what? Default. Default over there. My mongoose.schema, which is new schema over there, schema off. In this case, if you remember your permission, it was like on a subject song. So this is your schema. So I will keep it very simple. So number one will be the subject, which will be simply string over there, which is song in this case. So string over here. Then another one will be the action which I'm supposed to perform, which will be like in this particular case, which will also be string. So what I'm doing is, from each file over there, instead of defining the model directly, I'm actually defining the schemas and I'm exporting them. Then inside the role over there, I will simply go and try to create a simple index.js file quickly. And I will simply paste the same code, Control A, Control C, Control A, Control C. But over here, I will have only one key called as role. In this particular case, role will be string. Done. Simple. Good morning, Arka. Now, simply I have defined schemas. Have I defined any model, guys? Do you think I have defined any model at this point of time? I have not. There are two schemas that I have. I have not defined any model over there. I won't talk about role permission as of now. I will go to user and let me create a simple index.js over here. In this case, I will also define two keys. Number one will be my username or email, whatever you want, name it. Number two will be the password. So I've defined three schemas right now. I have not defined any model. In my main index.js over there, I will simply import them. So import. Now, one very important point before I move forward, I have a simple question. You see the schema from permission, it's exported default. Schema from role, it's exported default. Schema for user, it's exported default. What does default mean? What does default mean? What does default mean? If anyone asks in an interview, what is the difference between default export import and named import export? What is the difference? Default, whenever you write, it means from a file there can be only one default export. Number one thing. From a single file, there cannot be two default exports, only one. Main file, it's exported. Another thing is you can import it with any name. Whatever name you want to give it, in or import. Have I given this over here any name? No, I have simply exported the entire structure over here. So I can import it with any name. So I will simply say import. Import what? Permission schema. From where? From my dot slash, then permission slash my index.js. Similarly, I will import another one, import my user schema. From where? Dot slash, then user over the slash index.js. Then import another one over there. Import my role schema from dot slash and then over the role slash index.js. Done. Perfectly fine. Then I will define the model. So let me try to import my model as well. So in this case, I will simply go and try to import. Import what? Import my model. Model from Mongoose imported as well. So from here, I will define different models in my application. So let's try to export it. So export my constant. Now, whenever we export something without a default keyword, whatever the name of that variable is, we have to import it with the same name. We cannot use any name. Default means import with any name because we know from that file there will be only one default export. So when we say default, name it. This is named export. I'm not using default keyword over here. So exports user is equals to the model which I have created of that. Sorry, this model. So we have M over there as small, not capital. So let me remove this model over here. So model over here, model from Mongoose, and from here it will simply use number one is let me give it a name user. Then it simply uses user schema. Done. Another model which I will create is export my constant, my role over there. So let me define role is equals to model, and then I will simply say role, then comma, it uses role schema. Done. And there's a spelling error. Then another export over there. Export is equals to constant. I will simply have permission is equals to model. And then from here, I will simply go define permission. And then comma, I will simply go permission schema. So with this particular logic, can we say we have defined three models with three schemas? Can we say that? And they are all connected to my application. Now, wherever I want to import them, I will be able to import them. Give me quick yes or no in the chat. Quick yes or no in the chat, quickly. Done? Perfect. After this, let's try to open my MongoDB Compass. Now, this thing in role-based access control system is very important. Okay. From the last 40 minutes, since we have started the discussion of role-based access control system, don't you think that even before creating this application, you already know what roles you have? You already know what permissions in this application I'm going to implement? Yes or no? Do we already know that? So if we already know that, it means we can pre-add that data manually in the collections. So let me simply go and define what is the name of our this YouTube. Why YouTube? Is it not connected? Let me see what the database name is. So in this case, I will go to helper. Database name is in .env, which is YouTube RBAC. So let me simply go to YouTube RBAC. So do you see anywhere YouTube RBAC, guys? Okay, let me try to refresh this. So in this case, I will go and try to refresh it. So refresh database. So I'm not able to see. I'm not able to see YouTube RBAC. Can anyone tell me what's the reason behind this? So we need to make sure that our database is properly connected. So it is connected because it is giving me connected to database. So this is a proper valid link. Am I missing anything over here? No, 27017. It's absolutely fine. Maybe we are supposed to write our logic now. Maybe before we try to set up our data, let's create a simple route. In this, I will create also folders. Number one folder will be of auth, right? Number two folder that I will have over here will be of what is called a user permissions. And number three will be song, but I will create that later on. In this particular case, I will simply say index.js. And how do we create router? Import my express from express, right? So import express from express like this. Done. And let me remove this because it's a default import, so do not have it as a named import. Then I will simply say constant my router is equals to, I will simply go call my express.router like this. Done. And then we will simply go and export. Export what? Export my router. You can export it as a default as well. It's completely up to you. Export default router. Same code, Control A, Control C. I will put it in user as well. So user index.js. And let me simply paste it here. Why can I put same code here? Why not different code? Because it's a default export. So you can import it with any name. So that's why I have put it same. Now in this case, there are two folders. So routes should have also one single exit point. So it will be index.js. Where I will simply say import my auth router from my /auth/ index.js, like this. Second one is import what? Import my, what is called, any name, let's say user router. So import my user router from where? From /my user /index.js. Perfectly fine. And then over here I have to simply, I can use a single middleware over here. I can define the entire router different here. Let me show you that as well, but I will remove this code. What I can do is, there are three routers, right? Number one is auth router. Number two is user router. Later on, I will have song router, because on song I'm performing action. So even let me create that right now to give you a better idea. This is about learning. This is not about just creating application. So song. In this song, I will simply go create another index.js. And let me simply paste our code like this. Similar code here. In the index.js, I will simply go and try to import this as well. So import my song router, and then from where? From my my song index.js. So there are three routers. Now what you would want? What would you want? You would simply want routes like this. So please pay attention. Maybe I have a router. All the routes that are listening on auth, this is what I want. API /auth. Then /register login. So for this should be the route. For this, I want API /user, and then all of its routes. Or for this, I have API, then /user, this /song. So all the routes that are part of this router will be in auth. All the routes that are part of this will be on user. All of the routes that will be part of this will be on song. Now, in these three, do you see this particular thing common, guys? Do you see in auth router, user router, song router, there's API common? So we want this to listen on auth only, this to listen on user only, this to listen on users, and this main index to listen on API. If you're not able to understand what I'm trying to tell you, let me show you what I mean. Okay. So in this application, I will also go and paste the same thing. Import express from express, export default router. After this, I will simply tell on my router, please use what? Please use / let's suppose auth. Then over here, I will simply go put my auth router like this. Then on my router over there, please use. What are we going to use? /user. Then comma, I will simply go and put my user router. User router like this. Then on my router over there, please go and implement a use. Where you will simply say and try to implement song, and they will be listening on what? They will be listening on song router like this. Now at this point of time, quickly tell me if I have to make any request. Let's suppose in my auth, over there, for this router, I'm simply trying to define a register. Router dot get post over there. And in this particular post, I will simply say make a request on /register. Once this happens, async, then request comma response over here like this, like this, like this, like this. Now, in this particular case, I will write some business logic over here, whatever the logic is. In order to make this request, tell me on my index.application, main application, which is listing on 8000 port, what is the request that I have to make? Is this router right now connected with my index.js? Is this router right now connected to my index.js? Yes or no? What do you think? This router, auth router, is it connected with my main server index.js? Anyone? Or is it confusing? If it is confusing, I will rephrase. Tell me quickly. What's happening over here? Shall I repeat? Let me repeat. We know what routers are. Do we know what routers are? It's simply a router in isolation, a separation of concern. This router I am creating for all the logic related to authentication. This router I am creating for all the logic for songs. This router I am creating for all the logic related to users. Then I am importing this over here inside the index.js of routes folder. Where I am defining another router. So we all can agree with respect to this router, It's listening on slash auth slash user slash song, but I have to import this now, so I will import it over here. So let me go here and let me simply say import what router from my router slash index.js. Then on my app over there, please use what am I going to use on slash API, and then comma I will simply go call my router. So with this particular logic over here, can we do we all agree right now at this point of time we have actually connected each route with our server? Do we all agree with that? Yes or no? Do we all agree with that? And if we do agree with that, tell me, in order to make a request on this, what is the endpoint which I have to use? What is the endpoint which I have to use? The endpoint is from my main server, it will be slash API, then slash auth, then slash register. So slash API slash auth slash register. Then in a similar way over here, this song is listening on this router on slash song. This whole router is listening on slash API. So it will be slash API slash song slash something. Similarly, slash API slash user slash something. So that's what it entirely is going to be. I hope that makes sense. Done. Now, at this point of time, I am actually concerned with only one thing, that I am not able to see and look at the data. So let's try to go here and let's try to refresh the database. So do we have any YouTube like thing? We don't have 27017. Why is it not giving me the collection? Because it's connected 27017. Let me see if that is 27017. Exactly, we have. So let me do one other thing. Let me copy the connection string. Maybe I don't have proper connection string. So copy connection string and let me go here and let me paste it like this. So localhost 27017, this is exactly what we did. And let me name it YouTube. Okay. Why is it not automatically triggering it? So let me go here and I will simply say constant. Connected to database. Let me go now and let's try to refresh the database. So if I refresh the database, is there a YouTube? Why isn't there any YouTube? That's what I'm concerned about. So there should be YouTube. Why isn't there any YouTube? Because I have created a collection with the YouTube. Am I missing anything, guys? I don't think so, right? So DB Connect is being imported. It is being called as well. And I have a db.connect here method as well. So on this, please implement a connect method on the process dot. Let me do one another thing. Let me try to see if it is connected to the string or not. So constant URI is equals to process dot env dot URI. Although it is connected, but it's not creating the database. That's what I'm concerned about. Okay. So let me simply go say console.log my URI. Whenever you think there are some issues, please connect, please console. So I think it's absolutely correct over there. So let me go in this particular .env. We don't have to put it in a string. It will automatically treat it as a string. So let me paste it like this slash YouTube like this. Okay. And it should be connected to the database now. So let me try to restart my server. In this case, if I try to connect to the database now, there should be YouTube, but why isn't there any YouTube? Let me do one other thing. Since it is not working like this, so let me try to copy this whole DB Connect wala logic and let me try to connect it like this. So Control A, Control C in my index.js. What we will do is we'll simply go paste it. And let me try to import my Mongoose. So Mongoose from Mongoose. Is it connected now? It is connected. So connected to database, connected to database. Why do we have two connected to database now? Let me try to comment this line of code. Okay, now there's an issue. Now there's an issue. Now there's an issue. So there is, of course, an issue. That's why it was not working. Mongoose.connect, process.env. Okay, I have not configured it. So let me simply go and try to copy these two lines of code. And let me go in the index.js and let me simply paste it like this. So now it should properly work connected to database. So if it is connected to database, now if I try to refresh the database, so let me refresh the database, there should be YouTube. Why isn't there YouTube? Because I tell you, we are not, it does not matter. It will still be created. If we even don't create, in this case, it will be automatically created. It will show us the YouTube collection. Let's see if it, let's try to do that now. Okay, let's see if that is the case. I will simply go here in the auth and let's try to write a logic for our auth. When we talk about authentication, what are we interested in? We are interested in registering a user. So I will simply go here and I will try to register user. So constant my username, comma, my password. And I will read them from request.body. Done. Quickly tell me, will this username and password be read properly or will it be undefined? What will happen over here? It will be undefined. So we need to use a middleware called as app dot use over there and then express dot json like this. Done. So this is something that's very important. So now if I go to my auth middleware, once you read it, after that, what are we supposed to do? Now we will simply tell it, please implement some logic. What is that? Go there and save my user. And how do we save our user? We save our user with the hashed password. So I will simply go say constant my hashed password. Hashed password is equals to, I will simply say await my bcrypt.js. Is it imported automatically? No. So let me try to import my bcrypt. Where from my bcrypt.js. So I will simply go say bcrypt over here js. This is what the module name we have imported. So bcrypt dot hash over there. Hash what? Now, whenever we talk about hash, what are we trying to hash? Our password with the salt term over there called as 10. So now it should be a proper functionality. Now it says bcrypt has already been declared. Okay, so let me try to control X this, and now it should properly work. Perfect. After this, we have read our username. We have hashed the password as well. Now we will simply go create a new user. New user is equals to new user model. So let me simply go try to import it. And have we exported it? Of course, we have /index.js. Make sure you do this. Index.js. Then after this, so user, and then over there, I will simply go create new. Number one will be my username, which is directly from my request.body. Number two will be the password, which will be our hash password, like this. And finally, I will simply tell it await user.save, like this. So at least I'm performing a save method now. Now it should work. This endpoint is properly created. And let me do one thing. In the response over there, I will simply tell it send me a status, and status is equals 201, which is created. And let me send a JSON response, which will simply give me a message over there. And that message is user created successfully. Do we have any issues right now, guys? Do you think the logic is absolutely correct? For my creating a simple user over there, of course it's correct. So I have simply defined a router / register on which whenever I'm simply going to create a request, it will read username and password from the body. I'm hashing it, creating a new user of it, user model, and saving it. Now I have to do some other things over here as well because it's a role-based access control system. But just to get the data there, that's why I'm doing it a little bit fast. So I will simply go here and let me simply go create a postman. Okay, open the postman. So let's wait. So Postman, you should install it definitely if you have not already installed it. Perfect. So now over there, my endpoint is 800, then /API /user, auth /register. And in this particular case, we are simply supposed to pass two things inside our body. What are those? Number one that we have is username. So let me simply go define username. And then over the username is going to be adfer like this. Then comma, I will simply have my password. And that password is going to be equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Post request API /auth like this. Everything is fine. So let me remove this. I don't want this because I was using this authorization for something else. So API /auth /register, these two are being transferred. Let's send it. So if I send it, it says user created successfully. Now let's see the data. Let's hope data is now because we are going to face some issues if that doesn't happen. So there is a YouTube collection now. So in the YouTube collection, there are 3 data collections that we have: permission, roles, and users. And over here inside users, we have one data point where ID and password. Why don't I have username? Why don't I have username? So username I am trying to create directly, and password is equal to like this. Why I'm not getting username? So let me see the model of it. So in the model, we have users model as user. Okay, U is capital. Do you see U is capital? So over in the model, U is capital. So it's expecting U to be capital over there. But let me try to change it now, and let's go here and let's try to send it. So if I send it, it says user created successfully. And now if I try to open the same collection in the new database, new table, we can clearly see now user is also there. So we are able to create our users as well. We are able to visualize our data as well. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear? Give me a yes or no quickly in the chat. Am I clear? Done? Perfect. Now there's something that's very important. We are building a role-based access control design, right? Whenever we create such kind of websites, we already know what we are trying to create. It's predictable in nature. We know what kind of roles we have. We know what kind of permissions do we have. So in this particular case, in my roles over there, I think we should not give our database name YouTube, or let me do one thing. I have lost. Am I audible? I'm not sure. So I have lost my other screen. There are problems happening everywhere. Allow me a second. Okay, allow me a second. So let me remove the other screen. Give me a second. I hope. So now my laptop is going to behave very weirdly. So allow me a second. And this is my data. So let me try to refresh it. So we have our YouTube. So guys, let's do one thing. Let's take a break of 10 minutes. After that, we'll continue. In the meantime, I will set up the other screen and everything, okay? So let's take break of 10 minutes. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible? Done? So we will take a break of 10 minutes and then we'll continue, okay? Take a break of 10 minutes. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. Hello, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. Am I? Hello guys, hi everyone. Hello, hi, hi. I hope I'm audible. Please give me a confirmation quickly in the chat. Quickly. Perfect, great. Now let's pay attention. I hope now everything goes smooth and I hope we won't face any issues now. As of now, we have built a small setup for this entire application, but we know that what application we are trying to create. So we know what roles we have, what permissions we have, right? So let me go to the MongoDB Compass, and in the roles, I will simply add some data. I will insert the data manually. Now, instead of creating a backend logic for it, we know that there are two roles, standard, premium. We know there are two permissions like download. So I'll simply say insert document. Over here, according to your schema, you cannot write any other key name. According to the schema of your role, we can clearly see there's only one key, which is role. In the permission, there are two keys, action and subject. So according to your schema, go there and try to make sure the key is exactly what you have mentioned there. So what is the default role over there? First role, it is standard, like this. Let me try to insert it. So this data is inserted. Let me try to copy the same data in the another case. The role that I have over here is premium. Done. So we have built a premium over there like this. So two roles are defined manually. After that, in this case, I will simply go and define. There's, I think, let me try to push it like this. Okay, now I think it should be visible, right? If I click on this, it should be visible. So over here we have one another model called as permissions. So I have to open this permissions as well. And I know according to the data, what permissions do I have? So I will insert this manually as well. So whenever we create role-based access control websites, in most of the cases, role permissions, few entities we know. So we manually add them. So what is the first key inside my permission, guys? What is the first key inside permission? The first key inside permission, if I remember, is action. What is the action? Action is a like. Then what is this subject over there? On which subject we are performing this action? It is song. Done like this. So let me try to insert it. Similarly, I will copy the same thing over there, and in this case, the action will be download. So let me simply go say download. So we have inserted two documents over there with respect to permissions. Do we all agree? Done. Is there any issue that we have here? Give me yes or no in the chat quickly. Quickly, let me try to push it a little bit top. That's why I'm going to use another thing. Perfect. So it will be visible to all of you. It's still not visible. Okay. Screen is not, of course, that's what I have done it deliberately. Screen is not full, but leave that. Tell me, do you understand what I did here? Permissions. I added two manual permissions with respect to roles. I added two manual roles. Is it clear? Done. Now, another thing. At this point of time, do you think roles and permissions they are linked with each other? Do you think roles and permissions? Roles is a separate model. Permission is a separate model. Do you think I'm linking them anywhere at this point of time? I'm linking them. I'm connecting which role is supposed to have which permission. Like is standard is supposed to have like permission. Premium is supposed to have download permission. Am I linking them? No, I am not. That's why if you go to your code, there's one another model called as role permission. In which case, I will simply go define index.js. And let me simply copy the same schema over here from here to here. But what are the keys this schema will contain? The role permission schema, does it contain? And what does it, first of all, represent? First of all, the first thing that it represents over here is, which is most important thing, it represents which role is connected with which permission. Which means we will not write it like this role standard permission like, no, role is already there, permission is already there, we have to link them. And how can we link this particular data with this particular permission? With their IDs, with something that uniquely identifies them. So that's what I'm going to do over. I'm simply going to tell it the first key that we have here is role ID. Now this role ID's type is not string, it is object ID. So I will simply go say mongoose dot object ID. What do we have? We have mongoose, which is imported at the top over there, and its type is object ID like this. But which type of object ID? It is referencing to the ref of this particular keys to a role model that we have. So this is how we create a reference inside MongoDB of one model to another model. See, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Let's try to understand this. Although there is this some issue here, so I will simply say object ID. Okay. Now pay close attention. This is what I'm doing. Number one, okay. Now pay close attention over here. Okay. So in this particular case, I have two roles. Two roles, sorry. Number one role over there is my like, but it will have its ID, let's suppose one. Another role that we have, sorry, not like, but standard. So number one role is standard. Another one that we have over there is premium. So standard's ID over here is this and role is this. Then we have permission. Now permissions ID is, let's suppose, 3, one permission, another one 4. Standard permission is like, and this is download. At this point of time, I don't have anything mapped right now. It's not role is connected to permission, but then I create one another. Where I will simply tell it role permissions, role ID is this ID, take it, map it with this permission. So map the ID of role standard with the ID of permission like. So that's why I'm simply saying role ID is equals to the ID of which will be mapped to the permission ID of permission ID like. But this is going to reference to ID of role. This is going to refer to ID of like. So how do we create a reference? How do we create a reference between two models? We tell it type ref is equals to role. Is it clear? Does it make sense? Comma, I will simply go tell it permission ID is equals, I'm simply going to say type over there is equals to, again, let me try to copy the same thing. So console C, let me try to simply paste console V and then ref over there. What is it pointing to? What this object will be? This object ID will be of not a unique ID. It will not be a new ID, but it will be the ID of a particular document inside permission. So this role ID that I have over there, it will be already created ID. This role ID will be already created ID of a document inside role model. This permission ID will be already created ID of a permission in permission document, in permission model. So that's what I'm doing here. So now I have exported default as well. Let me try to import it. So I will simply go tell it, import my role permission, role permission schema from my dot slash role permission slash index.js. And then from here, I will simply say export my constant role permission. Let me define it. Role permission like this is equals to a model. Let me simply give it name role permission like this. And then it uses a role permission schema. Done. I hope this also makes sense. Now let's try to go to the database that we have again, and let me try to rename it. Let me try to refresh the database. In this case, I will go here and I will try to refresh the database. So let me try to quickly refresh. So if I refresh the database, we have our data YouTube here. In this case, you can see one another model here called as a role permission. Now pay attention. In this case, I want to add a data. And the first key according to the schema that we have is role ID. Tell me quickly, what is the role ID I'm going to put here in front of this? Quickly tell me. What is the role ID I'm going to put in front of this? Quickly tell me. What is the role ID I'm going to put in front of this? Role ID of what? Now I have to map with the role standard with the like permission, role premium with the download permission. So what is the role ID I'm going to put here? It is an object ID, first of all. So let me go here. Let me put actually this point of time only one and let me insert it. Then I will simply go to roles and let me copy the object ID of standard and let me try to edit it. And over here, I will simply go paste this ID. And then over here, the type of it is not string, but object ID. And let me try to update it. Now, when I update it, can we say this particular key is pointing to the standard document inside roles? Can we say that? In a similar way, I will go to permissions over there. Copy this permission of like over here. Go to role permissions and tell it to add another key which will be my permission ID like this. And in front of this, I will simply go paste this particular key. And now the type of this going to be object ID. So with this particular thing, can we say we have correctly mapped our role with the permission? We have mapped the role of standard with the action called is like. So you can see role ID. What is it? 8A2. And which document has 8A2? It is standard. Role permission. There is permission ID 8A5. Which particular permission is 8A5? It is like. So can we say in this particular role permission, we have created a document where a proper standard is mapped to a proper role? Sorry, proper permission? Of course, yes. In a similar way, I will go to roles and copy the object ID of premium. Let me go to role back and let's try to copy it. In this particular case, I will simply go paste it like this. A3, and I think this should be A6. And let me try to insert it. So if I insert it, we can see the second role permission that we have. Its role ID is 8A3. So which has 8A3? It is premium. The role permission is 8A6, which has 8A6, it is download. So can we say this particular model simply contains role permissions of premium with the like, standard with the like, premium with the download, and automatically in your web application now it's established which role has which permission. Can we say that? When we talked about this particular thing, they were isolated. They were not dependent of each other. They were independent of each other. And it did not made any sense over there. But now when we have role permission in this particular case, it now makes sense. It now makes sense. Then in that case, see, if there's a multiple permission, let's suppose there's a multiple permission. There is a share permission. And that's what you are trying to ask. What if the same role has share permission? There is this permission, there is this role called as premium. What if this premium has share permission as well? What will I do in that case? Simply go here. The same role ID will have the permission ID of share. So in that case, role ID is not supposed to be unique. So I will simply go, let's suppose I will simply copy it. In this particular case, I will simply put 7. What does it mean? That the same role has now another permission as well. Understood? So it's not like there will be only one permission. Depends on your application. But this is how mapping will be done. Which role has which permission? Map them. How many roles are there? Define them initially. How many permissions are there? Define them initially. I hope that makes sense. Another very important thing over here. I have set up the manual data. Right? I have set up the manual data. Everything is mapped properly. How many roles are there? I have defined them. How many permissions are there? I have defined them. Now, whenever any user, you go to Geo Hotstar, you go to Spotify, you go to Netflix, you go to these streaming websites. Whenever you try to log in as a user, don't you think there's a default rule? There's a default rule which is standard in this case. That every user that's going to register, they will have a standard rule no matter what. Yes or no? They will have a default rule. Give me a seven. Give me a seven. Another very important point. If you understood this, that every user who is going to register initially will have a standard role. If you understood this, another very important point. All the mapping that I have done manually, whether it's permission, roles, role permissions. Do you think any permission, any role I am connecting to user right now? Am I connecting anything to any user? So there is a user right now, and I have user is equals to Adfar, whose object ID is B7D. Do you see any user connected to a permission, connected to a role? I mean, not permission, role. No. So that is why it's very important for me to understand that there's one another requirement of another model, and that model is actually user roles. What are the user roles right now? Initially, every user when registering should have a standard role, but later on it can have a premium role as well. So I will simply go in this user role. I will also create an index.js. Now, what's going to happen in this case? Let me simply go and copy. Control A, Control C, and let me simply go paste it like this. Now, what's the first one? Number one is the user ID. User ID, like this. User ID. And another thing that I think I have done a mistake is role ID. It should be role ID. So number one is user ID. Number one is role ID. So role ID. Reference over there is user, and reference over here is role. So can we say, if you understood user role schema, can we say with this particular model, we will be able to understand which user has which role? Can we say that? Which user has which role? Do you agree with this or not? If this model over here with this model, I will be able to understand that this user has this role. Do we all agree? This will tell me that. Perfect. If we agree it with this, let me go here and let me try to import this schema as well. So import my user role schema from my dot slash, then user role slash, and then over the index.js. And let me simply go say constant export. My constant, I will simply go define user roles like this is equals. Then go there and model should be my user roles like this, and it's going to use a schema called as user role schema. Done. We have exported this as well. Based on what we have discussed in the last 10 minutes, that whenever any user tries to register, user should be created, it should be stored in the user model. Of course, it should be stored. But don't you think on the same time, when the user is being registered, there should be a standard role associated with it, which means when we talk about this particular logic, this incomplete logic, yes or no? We have to tell it over there. Whenever any user tries to register, create it in the user. This logic is absolutely correct. But on the same time, inside user role as well, create a document where you will associate a default role to it. For registration, associate a default role with it. That's what we need to do. And in order to associate default role, what are we looking at? We are looking at two keys. Number one key that we actually have over here is user ID. Number two key is role ID. Now, how will we find user ID? Can we all agree in this particular case, when the authentication is happening, whenever I am going to implement a save, the save method returns me the user who is being registered, and from there we can get user ID, yes or no? Can we say, if I simply say, let me try to make it a name new user instead of user, let me say new user. Then over here, whenever I'm trying to store this new user, if I put it in a variable, constant user over here is equal to this. Can we say in this variable, we got the user who is being registered, its ID as well, its username as well, its password as well, everything? Yes or no? Of course, we got everything. Then instead of finding all, I'm not interested in all, I am just interested in ID. So let me try to destructure ID. So constant underscore ID of the new user that is being saved. Give me yes, another yes. Done. If that's also yes, we have a key over there named as ID or user ID? What is the key name? User ID, not ID. So I can simply tell it go there and map this ID over there with user ID like this. Map this ID with user ID. So of course, destructure the underscore ID of the user that's being saved and give it a variable name called as user ID. So this is what it means, this line of code. Whatever the user that's being saved, save it, destructure ID out of it, and give it an alias called as user ID. After that, now we got the user ID of the user that's trying to register. What is the another thing that we are looking at? Another thing that we are looking at over here, according to user role, is role ID. But role ID of which? Can you tell me which role ID we need? Of which role? Standard or premium? Which role ID we are looking at? Which role ID we are looking at? Role ID of? Very good. We are looking at role ID of standard because that's the default role over there. And my roles are all stored in this particular model called as a role. So let me simply go inside the index.js. After we extracted ID, I will simply do one thing. On my role model, please go and find one. Find which one, where the role over here is equals to standard, like this. And then over here, simply resolve this promise and return me that particular role. Similarly, extract my ID out of it underscore ID and map that with role ID. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Similar to how I extracted my ID of a user who is trying to log in, I extracted the ID of a role via role is standard and mapped it to the role ID as well. Done. Then after this, I will simply go here and tell it, await over there the user roles which I have. In that, create the new. So user roles will create a new document where you will simply store what number one key is user ID, which is the user ID which I have received. So this one, user ID. So number one, take this, put it in front of user ID. Number two is a role ID. Take the role ID over there and make it the role ID which you have read at the top. Role ID like this. So can we say whenever any user is being registered, at the same time a default role is associated with the user? Can we say that? Yes or no? Can we say that? Whenever a user is being registered, it is being saved inside my user model. Of course, it's being saved. But on the same time, the role standard is also associated with the user. So let's try to test it out. So I will simply go here and let me try to delete this user. Right? And let me go here to the postman. The user is going to be Adfar Rashid, or you can name it. Let's give it email instead of username. So adfar@adfar.com. And let me try to send it. So if I send it, it should say user created successfully. Very good. But on the same time, if I simply go and try to refresh my database, so if I refresh my database, over and inside it there's user roles, although I'm not able to see any user role. There should have been user role. Is there a user? No, we are not able to see this. Is there a role? Yes, role is there, but users is not there. Why is that? Let's try to go here. Let me try to send it. So if I send it, user created successfully. Let me try to open it in a new tab. Perfect. No, there was a user. I was not able to visualize it. So let me delete one. So at this point of time, there's a user Adfar of user. In a similar way, if I talk about user roles, let me try to open it in a new tab, but I'm not able to see user roles. Let's see, there's an issue. What is the issue? Let's try to figure out that. So is user roles imported? User roles is imported. User ID is provided to it. Role ID is provided to it. Very good. In this particular case, let me simply say constant my A is equals to this. And let me try to go here and tell it to return A as well. Let me see what this role is. It says await. Okay. Let me try to remove this. Done. Let's see whether it's stored right now or not. In this case, send it. I am able to see there's a proper user ID, role ID getting associated. In this case, now if I try to open in a new tab, I'm not able to see the data. Why is that? Why is that? Okay, I have not saved it. Am I saving it? Perfect. There's one thing missing. What am I missing, guys? User, you see, user ID is being extracted, role ID is being extracted, but I am not saving it. So dot save. Done. So now it should properly work. So if I now try to say, let's give it Roshan @gmail.com, and let's try to send it. So if I send it, we got our user created in the database. If I simply go to user roles, let me open in a new tab, we can clearly see our user. Now look at this. We registered user Roshan. What is the ID in front of user ID? CC5. Which particular user have the role CC5? It is Roshan. So Roshan @gmail.com is the user ID. Then the role ID is 8A2. Which role has 8A2 sitting up? So can we say according to this, Roshan by default, when registered, has a default standard role? Can we say that? Can we say that yes or no? Done? So this is something that's very important. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So with this, we have understood the basic logic of our register. So let me copy this and let me paste it here. In this case, in the error, if there's any error, give me bad request 400 and simply say message is bad request like this. And I don't want you to give me A, so let me remove A. So register should be done. After this, I will simply go on the same router. Please implement another post request where you will simply go implement a /login. In this particular case, comma async await request, comma response like this. Also, I am supposed to read two things from the document. So constant, from the body, constant username, comma password over there like this is equals to request.body. Okay. So let me define request.body like this. And then what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to find a user with the username. Although it's not email, it's not unique in this application, but make it unique. Okay. I would definitely suggest you to make it unique. So constant user is equals to await on my user model. Please find one, which is it going to find where you are going to find it with username. Done. Now there are two possibilities. If there is any user, done. If there is not any user in that particular case, give me an error. What is the error? The error that you will receive is response.status. It's going to be 404, which is user not found. So user not found, like this. Done. And then I will simply go remove this A as well. So this is the message. But if user is there, what's the next thing that I'm going to do? If user is there, what's the next thing that I'm going to do, guys? So next thing that we will do is, if user is there, we are going to check whether they quickly. What are we going to do? Very good, Rohit. Roshan. We're going to check whether password is correct or not. So constant is match is equals to, simply use a method of bcrypt.js, which is called compare over here. So compare method. In this particular case, always remember the first argument is what you are receiving from the request.body. So password. Second argument is with which you are comparing it, which is user.password. Now, of course, in this case also, there are going to be two possibilities. Either is match will be true or not. If is the match is not true, in that particular case, give me response.status, which is going to be 401, and it is simply going to be password incorrect. So let me remove this and let's simply say invalid credentials. Done. And finally, after that, if now password is also correct, so below this curly brace, there are only two possibilities. Now user is there, password is there. Now what are we going to do? If user is there, password is there, what is it that we do? Because we have to implement authentication, authorization properly. So before we tell it to give me the response, what is it that we do over here? We generate a token, right? Because we are using JWT, JSON Web Tokens. So before we tell it, since our email is correct, our password is correct, we will generate our token. And in order to generate our token, what is the module we installed? It's called JSON Web Token, which I have not installed. So let me simply go here. Let me simply say NTMI, JSON Web Token. Is it token or tokens? Token, right? So now I will simply go here inside this case. And now how do we generate token? Which is the method? What's the method which we use? So let me simply say constant token is equals to, what's the method? JWT. So we have to import that. So let me try to quickly go here and let's try to import the entire library with the name of JWT. So JWT dot sign method. So we use sign method over there. What's the first argument sign receives, guys? What the first argument sign receives? Payload. And which kind of payload are we talking about? A unique payload. A unique key of a user with the help of which later on I will be able to identify this user uniquely. So we have to pass a payload in a way where first payload, the keys in it, either if you don't put unique, but one key has to be unique. So let me simply say user ID. And this user ID is going to be equals to user underscore ID. Now, if you want, you can simply go and try to put another keys. It's completely up to you. If you want, you can simply say another key is username. If you're interested in that later on, when I try to verify the token, I want to get username as well. So user dot username, like this. It's completely up to you. If you don't want to put this key, it's completely okay as well. Why? Because we are interested in something that will uniquely identify it. And I think we already got that underscore ID, which will uniquely identify it. What is the second argument over here after payload? What is the second argument after payload? Second argument after payload is secret key. Very good. And we already have defined our secret key. So process.env.jwt secret. If you see over it inside your .env, we have already put the secret key. Done, perfectly fine. Very good. Let me go here in the auth and JWT secret key. What is the third key? Third keys are options. If you want to put it, it's completely up to you. If not, it's completely up to you. So it expires in. If you want to put expires in, do it. If not, it's completely up to you. But I think you should definitely put expires in. How long it should expire? How long it should be active? So expire in 3 hours. I was yesterday working with an application where I put expires in 30 days. So expires in 3 hours. Done. And after that, I will simply say, now what's the next step? which we have done in the previous class. In the response dot status over here, it should be 40. Oh, it should be okay 200. Then I will simply try to send a JSON response where it will simply give me a message, and then message over there should be user logged in. Then comma, I will simply tell it to send a token. But before we send our token and we generate our token, do you remember in our last project which we built, I stored the token in a cookie? Do you remember that? I stored the token in a cookie, right? Because JWT says if you want this user to be remembered, make sure with each request that you send from the front end, you pass the token as well. But is it necessary that I will use only cookies? No, no, no. Cookies we saw in one example. I'm not going to use cookies now again. But what I will do is, let me give an idea. Although we will not build front end of this application, you have to build that on your own. But let me still give you an idea. Over here, I am sending a token to the response. So whenever anyone will log in, do we all agree the token will be also sent to the front end? Do we all agree with that? Of course. Now, in the front end, store it somewhere in local storage, wherever you want storage, store it. And then with each request where you want it to be authorized, send it in a header called as authorization header, which I will show you in this example. So it's not necessary I will only send it using cookies, read cookies, parse cookies. No. I will also store it in local storage and then send it using authorization header, which you can do, which I will do in this application. So let's try to go to the Postman. Let's try to go and check login. So let me simply go say login. In this case, it's the same email, same password. Let's try to send it. So if I send it, we can clearly see it says user logged in, and I am able to see a proper token as well. I hope this makes complete sense. So have we logged our user, guys? Give me a quick yes or no in the chat. Have we logged in? Done? Have we logged in? Perfect. But now all I want is I want a route to be protected. So I have logged in. A token is unique token is there. Wonderful. I have a unique token generated, which I have sent to the front end as well. Over there, whatever front end will decide to it, completely up to the front end. But now what I want is I want to define a route over here. So router dot get on the home page, and then over here I simply want to put a middleware in between, a middleware. So I will simply go say async request comma response like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Where it will simply say response dot send, I will simply say who the user is. User is dash dash request dot user. At this point of time, if I go to my database and if I simply try to remove this login and ask it to give me a get request, you can clearly see we are able to see the response. The user is, I have not put anything after that, which means I am properly able to get the response. But I don't want that. I want there should be a proper middleware in between which will determine whether user is logged in or not. And how do we check that? Whether there's a token. And we verify that token. So we create a middleware. So inside our middleware's folder over there, I will create a file with the name of auth or authentication. Authentication.js like this. In which case, I will simply tell it to export this particular function in a default way. Export default function over there. Where whenever we talk about middlewares, it has access to three things. What are those? Number one is request, comma, response, comma, next. It always have access to three things: request, comma, response, comma, next. Now over here, we know we have to use a method of JWT to verify the token. So we have to import our JWT as well. So let me simply go here and try to import my JWT. Now quickly tell me in the chat, in order to verify our token, what is the first thing that we need? What is the first thing that we need? In order to verify the token, what is the first thing that we need? You imported JWT. In order to verify whether the user is logged in or not, what is the first thing that we need? We need a token. We need to somehow find a token. In our previous example, we found the token from request.cookies.token, but I have not stored in the cookies right now. But I know from the front end, I will send it inside a header called authorization. So I will simply say constant my token over here is equals in the request object, in its header over there, there will be a token called as authorization. Please go and access it. So let me simply go and read a authorization token like this. And then if it is there, well and good. If not, then see what you need to do. So now there are two possibilities if not token. In that particular case, what is it that we have? It is simply unauthorized, access denied, something like that. So response dot status. Sorry. So response dot status over here is equal to 401. And then over in the JSON, I will simply send a message over here. And what is that? Message is access denied. Now your question should be, how do we send an authorization header? Using Axios, using fetch. In Axios, have we not sent a header content type is equal to JSON, guys? Application slash JSON. Have we done that in our previous sessions? When we build a MERN application from the front end, we sent a header called as content type. In a similar way, we will send another header called as authorization. Similar, simple. This makes it more easy. Now, I'm not sending data and reading data using cookies, but I am sending the data within the request that we have. Now, if there's no token in that particular case, something like this. But if there is token, what do? We verify it. And how do we verify a token, guys? Anyone? How do we verify a token? How do we verify a token? We use a method called as JWT.verify, and we get a payload out of it. We name that decoded. Decoded is equals to use a JWT method called as verify over here, in which the first argument is our token. Second argument that we pass over there is process.env dot JWT secret. Same secret we have to pass secret like this. Is there any other key that we pass? Of course not. Only these two things, token with the secret key. And then we simply tell it, if this happens, update my request.user with that particular thing, and in which I will simply extract only ID. And I will simply say extract decoded dot ID. Like this, user ID. If you are not able to understand what happened, let me try to explain again. Although I think this completely makes sense, straightforward makes sense. We have passed a token. It will verify it. It will extract a payload out of it. Now, what is the payload? If you remember, payload is nothing but this particular object, in which one key is user ID, which is the user's ID that is trying to log in. Another one is user's username. So can we say, which means decoded.user ID is nothing but the ID of the user who is trying to log in? Can we say that? Can we say that? This decoded.user ID is nothing but the ID of a user that's trying to log in. Can we say that? Which means I am telling it, once this middleware executes itself, in the request object, create a key called as user and create another key called as ID, which will point to the ID of the user who is logging in. And then finally, if this happens, then go there, call a next function in the queue. Even let me do one thing over here. Let me try to control X this. In this case, I will simply implement try catch. So in the try catch, let me simply tell it, try this, sorry. Control X, try catch. In this try over there, do this. Otherwise, simply go there and catch an error, which will simply say 401 and simply say not authorized. So not authorized. Like this. I hope this logic makes sense. Now, all we need to do is we need to import it inside our auth. So I can simply go here, call the middleware, which is called the authentication. Like this, it's imported at the top over as well. You can see authentication is imported from authentication.js. So now if this authentication works, then you can see it calls the next function in the queue. If it does not execute this particular code, it will give me this error. So can we say this whole next function will be only executed if inside the request.user there's a user? So I can simply say print me request.user. And if I now go to the postman and let me try to send it, of course it won't work. It will wait. Why? Because next is not being executed. And you can clearly see it gives me access denied because I have not passed the token over there. So let's generate the token. So I will simply go say log in. In this particular case, once I log in, I will simply go implement a post. I have a body and let's try to send it. So if I send it, we got our token. So let me copy this token. So if I copy this token, let me go inside the same endpoint. I will remove this particular. Let me keep this here. Let's create a new request. In this case, I will go here, copy this thing, and let me paste it here. If I paste it here, I will remove the login because I have to make a request on this. So if I send a request, it says access denied. Why does it say access denied? Because it does not have a token attached with it, associated with it. But I do have a token over here when I try to log in. So if I try to log in, I get a token. So let me copy this token. So if I copy this token, when this front end request is made, I am telling it to attach a header. And what is that header called? Authorization. In this authorization, the value is the token that we have. This is what all you need to do. You have to figure out from the front end how with this request you will send an authentication token within the header. And now if I try to send it, we can clearly see it tells me there's an error. Let's try to figure out what the error is. So it says my invalid states code user is this original states code. What is the error? What is the error? We are trying to figure out that. Cannot set errors after they are sent to the client. It says I cannot set the header, sorry. So let me see, it is authorization, the same header which I'm using, so it should be properly working. So it says that I'm not able to use authentication here. Let me do one thing else. If it's not able to use it here, in this case, I will simply go inside index.router and let me put it over here. So on this router, please implement use. What is it going to use? You're simply going to use authentication middleware. So this is what I'm doing. I'm simply trying to tell it that if you are not able to use our middlewares like this, please put the authentication middleware between this. Now, what does it do? It means above this, I don't need authentication middleware. Below this, I need authentication middleware. This is what I'm saying. Although it should have worked here as well, but why is it not working? Let's try to figure out that. So let me simply go say authentication. Let's keep it here as well. Although that is also correct, let's do that as well, but let's try to implement it here. So authorization middleware is this. Let me send it. It says could not get the response, of course, because my server right now is not working. So let's figure out what the issue is. It says app crashed at the bottom. Let me try to figure out. Okay. So it says, what is the issue? Issue is use response.status send. Am I making any mistake in authentication middleware? Response.status JSON. Response.status 401 JSON. Message. So it's absolutely correct. Invalid status code. So let me use 401. Let's use 400. I think access denied was working. It says this is not working. So let's see and let's try to send it. It's get request. It's again showing the same error, which is response.send is depreciated. But where am I using response.send? Okay, I'm using here, right? I'm using here. So let's say response.json. In this case, I think this is what I should do. All the response.send should have properly worked. So response.send should properly work. Let me return only user, case.user, okay? So in this case, let me go here and it should work now. Perfect, it works, great. I was having a string concatenated with an object. That's what the issue was. So string was concatenated with an object. So if you have to display object in the output with the string properly, key value pair, you have to make it JSON. Now, since I have implemented response.json only, we got the user who is logged in. And we all know who is the user that's logged in? Roshan. And if you go to your MongoDB Compass, you can clearly see Roshan over here has the CC5 ID. So can we all agree with this particular logic? We have implemented authorization yet once again? Yes, sir. Have we understood the authentication authorization? Give me a quick confirm in the chat. Done? Perfect. Very good. So we will close our class at this point of time today. We will take one another class on the same project on Tuesday. We're going to have a class on Tuesday and then another class on Wednesday. So these two classes will be Tuesday, Wednesday, and we will close our discussion. There was one other project, e-commerce project that I was planning, and maybe some other class on generative AI, not from myself, but from another instructor. I'm seeing that there are only 10 students who joined, so I don't think that will continue. But we will have one last or maybe two classes on the same project if we are able to. Same, it will be 7 to 9 in the evening, Doha, for the Tuesday and Wednesday classes. Wednesday is already holiday, right? So Wednesday won't be problem. Tuesday might be a little bit issue because maybe traveling issue, but I will keep it 7 to 9. Okay, done. Perfect. So give me the feedback of today's session. I hope you have enjoyed this session and thereby some technical issues that we faced. Let's hope that these do not happen again in another classes. But I think we are good. Please, sir, if possible, increase the class. Let's see how it goes, but it is difficult to increase the class. Like we used to be 30, 40 students, and now there are only 7 students. And how does that work, right? That doesn't work. So let me share the address link. Allow me a second only, and then we will stop. नहीं scalar नहीं. So I've shared the address link. Please join that. Okay, as soon as you can. I mean, sorry, not join, but fill the form. And see you in the next class. Thank you so much, guys. Take care of yourself, and let's see how it goes. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye. Take care. All the best. Bye.